Hey, welcome everyone. Hey, I just want to give a huge shout out to Emergo Academy. Emergo Academy is one of our newest sponsors here on the Other Side of Addiction podcast. And I took Emergo's training a little over a year ago. And what I love about Emergo training is they are all about the brain first approach. So they got a book called oh my gosh, yeah, I just forgot the name of their book. I have to apologize, Dave and Susan. But what it is, the brain first approach, they like to say that recovery is a brain thing. And I have to agree with that totally because a lot of us know that's in the recovery community. We know that whatever our addiction is, that's just the band-aid. We know that's not really the issue. We're just trying to cover up whatever trauma and pain that we have. One thing that I love also about their training that I took, it has really changed my life because it's really opened my eyes to start realizing different things. I start to analyze things a little bit more by using the brain thing, the brain first approach, to where I start looking at what's the lesson behind this? What is the reason why this is happening? So, guys, if you're looking for a great program, even if you're not wanting to be certified as a crisis and recovery coach and you just want to change your life, check out emergoacademy.com. Remember, recovery is a brain thing. Quinn, thank you so much. I'd like to introduce Quinn. This is the second time he's been on the show, and we ran into one another at a recovery event a couple months ago. And Quinn said, "Hey, could I come back on your show?" And anytime anyone wants to come back for a second appearance, a third appearance, a fourth appearance, I'm like, absolutely. Let's get you back on. So it's been at least a couple years since Quinn has been on, and we spoke a little bit about CaliSober, if I remember. So it's been a long time. You have come, my friend. Oh my gosh, you have come such a long ways with this program and really being the founder, the pioneer of it, if I'm not mistaken, here in the Salt Lake Valley. So let our listeners know a little bit more about what is Cali Sober.
Um, Thanks, Al, for having me on. I really appreciate you, and I'm so happy when I get to see you at these recovery events and stuff. Because we actually met before I moved back out to Utah, and it's you really have been here since the beginning of this whole journey with as far as like the Cali Sober Recovery program goes. And I've been seeing your journey too, and I'm really proud of you and.
Thank you.
So your resilience and dedication is very inspiring. So I really appreciate you for being there.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Um, yeah. Yeah, last time we talked about Cali Sober, and at that time I was kind of just, another content creator in recovery out there, kind of speaking out about, a different path to recovery. How for me, abstinence didn't make sense because it was a huge commitment to say that I'll never need any kind of mood or mind altering substance again. So if anything ever happened to me, if I ever get into an accident, if I ever develop some kind of cancer, if I ever get some kind of mental health or something happens, I can't use medications or else all of a sudden I'm going to lose my sobriety. That fear of possibly always having something happening and I may need some mood or mind altering substance someday kept me in fight or flight mode. I needed somebody to say, hey, it's okay to do what it is that you need to do to live the happiest life that you can, whether that's through mental health medications or medical assisted treatment or harm reduction, whatever it is that you need to do or whatever steps that you need to take to get there, that's what's important. So, since talking to you, I was approached by a lot of people asking me, "Hey, we need some kind of program. Like this lifestyle is really amazing, but we also need some guidelines. Like what should I be doing? What should I be working on?" And because I started my journey in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've done a lot of study on Bill Wilson, I truly believe in his vision. I believe in the steps. I believe in the spiritual awakening. And that's what I based the Cali Sober Recovery program on. So the 12 steps in Cali Sober are the principles are virtually identical to the same principles in Alcoholics Anonymous, which is honesty, belief, hope, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, accountability, responsibility, dedication, connection, and service. And of course, there's words with all of them, beginning with the most important one. We came to recognize, this is our first step, honesty. We came to recognize that substance abuse, unhealthy behaviors, and obsessions have controlled our lives, leading us away from our true selves. So it's not about powerlessness in CaliSober. It's more so about reclaiming our true self, our true identity, and removing unhealthy behaviors and obsessions and substances that led us further away from that. For some people, like myself, being 100% abstinent because I have PTSD, I have borderline personality disorder, I have ADHD, going completely abstinent led me into psychosis, manic episodes. And in these manic episodes and psychosis, I would go on moments of time that I didn't remember. When I would come back, I wouldn't remember these times, and sometimes it was self-harm, sometimes it was relapse, sometimes it was overspending or, promiscuity. So I decided, well, to me, maybe, being abstinent isn't the route. Maybe I need to get my mental health managed so I don't go into these manic episodes where I do these things that I, have no control over. So I said, let me get evaluated and get on some prescription medications. When they told me about it, it was five different medications, two of which were Xanax and Adderall. And those were substances that I chased before. So in my mind, I said, well, if you give me this prescription, this list of prescriptions, and two of those are substances that I've chased, one of these days I'm going to say, well, you know what? I actually maybe need two of these today. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to find myself without for a day. So at the end of the month, I'll either be forced with the choice of not having anything, finding something somewhere else, or, resorting to a different substance. So I didn't want to find myself in that position of, having to count my medications, you know, live in scarcity of like what happens if I lose one, what happens if one falls down the toilet or, like this rat race of the pharmaceutical industry. So I said, well, what's the alternative that isn't going to put me into physical withdrawal if I don't have it? And, something that's safer. I'm not saying I have to be a saint. I don't have to be, all this stuff, but I want to do something a little bit safer than pharmaceuticals. And that was just the choice that I had made for myself, not bashing pharmaceuticals. And so, because I was living in Boston, they were like, well, let's get you your med card. You can use cannabis to alleviate your symptoms and help your mental health. So I said, why not? I tried methadone, I tried Suboxone, I tried abstinence, I tried, other things, gone to traditional, non-traditional, whatever rehabs. This is just another thing to mark off the list of like things I need to try to get my life together. And I found what worked for me, and it was cannabis. Just simply at the beginning, I was using a lot. Somebody might even say I was abusing cannabis. In that time, it was harm reduction for me. Smoking, throughout the day was keeping me from wanting to resort to harder substances. It was harm reduction. Was it completely safe? No, smoking anything isn't safe, but it was working for me. Now I'm going on 5 years without a relapse on cocaine or heroin. I continue to use cannabis and my mental health is managed. I haven't had a self-harm relapse in 5 years. Um, so it is for me a much better quality of life. Is it harmless? No. Like I said, smoking anything is not good. But in this day and age, I kind of see it as, there's a lot of things that we have to kind of adapt to. And medications and a way of life is something that, is far different than where we were, 70, 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So being properly medicated is what's helped me stay on the right path. And since then, like I said, I created, the CaliSober step workbook. It has 12 steps. It has step work right in the book for all of the steps, so you can actually work through the steps without needing a sponsor. We recommend having a mentor, but it's not, most of us don't usually, and we kind of get scared from the idea of working steps because we have to, you know, put all of our deepest, darkest secrets out into the world for somebody else to know. But you can work it right here. It's got reflection questions. It's the same, step 4 worksheet for resentments. If you're working step 4 in AA, you're working step 4 in Cali Sober, and we did that on purpose, not only because I honor the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and what Bill Wilson envisioned, but also because I want people from different 12-step programs to be able to say, "Hey, I'm working this step." And that person is in Cali Sober and they're working that step and it's the same step so that they're like, hey, I'm working the 4 steps, so am I. And they can relate and they can work alongside each other and help people because not everybody's path is going to look the same. So in this book, we also have we talk about the habit loop. We talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We talk about emotional frequency. We talk about the law of vibration, the law of frequency, the law of attraction. We also have weekly check-ins, relapse prevention sheets, how to make a manifestation board, uh, daily and evening reflections. So it's basically an all-in-one workbook, but we also have meetings, Zoom meetings every single day. We have in-person meetings. We have mentors available to help guide people through the steps. We have 24-hour support, online support in our private groups so that anonymity can remain. We have a page with almost 100,000 members. So I didn't pioneer Cali Sober, um, the term anyways. The original term, CaliSober, is in reference to people who use, cannabis and mushrooms in recovery. Yes, but also CaliSober is much bigger than that. It's an umbrella term for anybody who doesn't fit the abstinence only model. It's for people who need mental health medications. It's for people who need Suboxone, Vivitrol, methadone. It's a place where people can come and talk openly about what they're going through in their recovery and get support so that they don't feel shame when they say, "Hey, I've been struggling because, I'm coming off of Suboxone. I'm doing a Suboxone taper." You know, there's no shame around that. That
Yeah.
is recovery to us, and we want to help support people. So Cali Sober is more so a harm reduction program with all the support and resources that somebody could need if they're looking to, work a program openly, that doesn't fit the abstinence only model.
And I love that whole outlook on that, especially because you just mentioned the word shame, right? What sends those in recovery back to the addiction a lot of times? It's that shame, right? Of things that they've done. And I know of other individuals too who have been in recovery for many years, like yourself, and have had an accident to where they have to have a painkiller or something, the pain management, and they're so afraid of doing that. And I understand that they're scared because they've lived in recovery for so long and they love the life that they're living right now. However, also, you can't live your life in frickin' extraordinary pain either, excruciating pain.
Right.
I mean, before I had my leg amputated, I've always been one that has been totally against prescriptions, totally against it. Now, I understand there are people that need them, right, to help them with mental illnesses and different things like that. And I've had to really open my mind up a little bit more on it. But I was taking oxycodone, like, I mean, it was coming out of a Pez dispenser because I was in so much freaking pain on a continuous basis. And my
Can't even
pain
imagine.
tolerance is extremely high.
Yeah.
So taking 2 Oxycontin don't do crap for me. I mean, seriously, they don't. I mean, when my block came out in the hospital, they were pumping morphine and oxy, and they were giving me everything in the freaking book. Nothing was touching me. And then I had to go through, I had did the ketamine. They finally did the ketamine. And that freaking shut me down like that. I mean, really, really quick. But I understand the nervousness of people to get to that point. And I have never been addicted to prescriptions. You know, mine was cocaine and alcohol on the weekend basis. And I was so afraid. Seriously, I was so afraid of getting addicted to that stuff because I was taking so much of it just to try to get to where I could sleep for an hour.
Hmm.
And I remember by the time I had my leg amputated, I was on 8 different prescriptions.
Wow.
That is the most I've been on my whole life, my whole freaking life. And I had made my mind up. I was damn and determined. I was not going to stay on this stuff, especially gabapentin. I was told from other amputees, you'll be on gabapentin the rest of your life. I'm like, oh, well,
Mm.
that's just freaking great. Right. And then I talked to my doctor about it, and my doctor goes, no, you don't. That's up to you. And she weaned me off within 3 weeks. I was completely off of it. I haven't
Nice.
taken any of the stuff. I don't know, I'm only coming up on 5 months post amputation, and I've not taken any of that stuff for at least 3 months.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
I'm proud of myself for that. And I was talking to a buddy who was addicted to prescription pills, and I was telling him how I was feeling. And he's like, Al, you got to realize, though, open up your mind. It's the pain management, though, too, right? And it's kind of like what you're saying, Quinn. If unless I'm misunderstanding you, there is that certain point where you can't shame yourself and you can't beat yourself up because it is something that we need. Thank goodness for pain medication. I mean, seriously, because I was in so much freaking pain. I literally wanted to put a pistol to my head and freaking end it because I had just dealt with it for so long. If it wasn't for things like that to help us get through that, and thank goodness too, I had a really good support system. I had people inside my bubble that, was really giving me a lot of good feedback and also educating me on a lot of that stuff because I've never had that much. I've never taken that many prescription pills in my life. So um, just a shout out and a say thank you to all those that I reached out to help me. And kind of going off of that and coming back to where you're saying, I would think that you've probably had a little resistance or a lot of resistance of people pushing back on this because I know there are programs out there that you have to be 100%, I mean nothing, right? But
Right.
also there's those cases, how is that possible? I mean,
Yeah.
and I am also one of those. My version is, and we talked about this before we started recording, I think the most important thing is for that individual is to get sober. If they're wanting to get clean and sober, whatever the hell works for them. Who the hell am I to point a finger at and go, no, 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 you're doing this wrong. This is not the right way of doing it.
Right.
You yourself have just proved, what did you say, 5 years? You're 5 years in now? I'm sure you have had people come through your program that are a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the same way. So who are we on the other side to point our finger and say it doesn't work and you're doing it wrong when they haven't touched a drug other than what's helping them, whether it's cannabis or mushrooms? I mean, I'm big in now in mushroom coffee. I mean, my daughter got me started on it when I was living with her after recovery, and holy crap, I love the stuff. I love it. So
Heck yeah.
does that make it to where now I'm not no longer in recovery because I'm drinking mushroom coffee?
Right. Right. Incredible story, by the way, Al. You're really such an inspiration. A buddy of mine, Benjamin Lerner, he makes recovery rap. He got a bunch of people commenting on his because he claims abstinence, and people were giving him trouble because he was drinking kombucha.
Oh,
The
wow.
the probiotic, because it is fermented and it does have like super tiny amount of alcohol, like nothing to where they need to check ID or anything. You can buy it at any grocery store.
Yeah.
But they were giving him trouble about that, and it goes to show, people will try and judge. And I love how you said, my version because that really is, that's why we've created CaliSober with more intentional, guidelines of like the only guideline is like as long as you're not obsessing and it's based like your intentions are based in healing and recovery instead of like dependency or escapism, then that is recovery. You know what I mean? So just like how you're saying, you work a program of abstinence and then you get to a point where something tragic like having to have your leg amputated, to some people there you have an extreme case where it's visibly able to be, like when you see somebody who got their leg amputated, you know that they didn't do that, without anything. It's obvious that you need to have some kind of sedation, some kind of numbing, some kind of whatever. You wouldn't expect somebody to go through that with, wide awake. That's crazy. So, but what people, and what you said was, taking the medication to save your life, right? And what people don't tend to recognize is that for some people, that pain isn't physical, it's mental, and that torture is inside the head. And taking medications is what saves them from having the same thoughts that you had of wanting to put a gun to your head because of that pain. For some people, that pain is mental, and it has it hits the same, you know, receptors or whatever that make us want to feel that same escape of like, I just don't want to experience this anymore. So I love that you said, my version, because your version does include something that is mood or mind altering that you needed. And for somebody to say that you're not sober because you made the decision to take the prescription, that is outlandish.
Yeah.
So that's exactly why, Cali Sober exists, is for people to be like, hey, just because I need a life-saving medication or, a medication that's going to keep me from self-harm or relapse or, in excruciating pain or whatever it might be. And my intention isn't to abuse it. My intention is to use it as prescribed, as needed. And then if I feel better, I don't need it anymore. That to me is what's important, And so I love your story because it is, monumental to the idea that like, yeah, being abstinent is amazing, but what happens when you need something? And when that something happens, is your support system going to be there to be like, hey, you do what you need to do to save your life? Or is your support system going to be like, hey, look, I know you did what you had to do, but now you need to stand up here and take a white chip because you took opiates.
Yeah.
That to me is crazy. And that to me would lead me right back to the streets. If I lost my whole community and didn't have support because I needed life-saving medication, and that was my choice, was to be deemed sober or to take the life-saving medication, oof, that decision right there is just, it's heart-wrenching just to think about it.
And
So,
it's hard to understand. At least it is for me. You know, um, I know someone a couple years ago went to a recovery program in Orem, and this individual fell down some stairs, busted up their knee pretty good. Went to the emergency center, got the x-rays, got worked on under lots of pain, and they gave this individual some painkillers to help. As soon as the recovery center found out, they kicked her out. She's back out on the street. And I really had a hard time with that. Now, I understand there's certain rules and regulations some of these places have to follow. However, instead of kicking them out, they could have found somewhere else where those rules didn't apply. Because
yeah.
what happened, that person felt so much shame and felt so guilty, they went right back into their addiction again. So it's another issue I really have a hard time with because This is where I think the majority of our system is broken, because and Quinn, you've lived through it, man. You've lived through it. You work with people who have gone through it and lived through it. I just really have a hard time because addicts are going to act like addicts. It takes that certain period of time for that brain to start getting healthy and healthier neurons firing, and and we start figuring things out a little bit and we start growing a little bit. Why are so many addicts getting kicked out of recovery centers for acting like addicts? That's the whole freaking
Right.
purpose why they're there. The whole purpose why they're
Right.
there, right? And to be able to have a little bit of openness, I think really helps. And I'm saying this because again, I know you've gotten pushback with your program. However, your program is saving lives. Your program is keeping people off the streets. Your program is helping individuals that this program is working for to get their life back.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Bill Wilson said, the whole thing, we do recover, right? Like to me, that's the goal. I want to be able to use medications and do the things like normal people do, right? You take them when you need them. If you don't need them, why would you take them, right? And for somebody, like the person that you're talking to get shunned because they need some kind of medication, to me, it makes far more sense to take someone in who needs medication and teach them how to use that responsibly and to get them to understand the intention of why they're taking it rather than saying, well, you just don't fit in our model, so you need to leave, right? Like that's why we created CaliSober is to teach people, look, if you need to live a non-abstinent life, then let's teach you how to do that responsibly, where you don't lose everything and end up in the streets and do whatever. Like a lot of people started, including myself, started their journey in addiction because of something that was prescribed to them initially, right? And if somebody would have told me at 15 years old, like, hey, if you take this for too long, you're going to go into withdrawals, maybe I would have been more mindful or understood, like, hey, this is something that I could, I could get addicted to, but there's no education around that. And so after 30 days of taking Oxycontin for freaking surgery, them taking freaking cartilage off of my bone with a bone saw at 15 years old, and I start going into withdrawals and I'm 15 years old and in junior high or in high school, and all these kids are, getting into drugs and all this stuff, and I'm feeling like crap, and what am I going through? And somebody, yeah, you're in withdrawals. Oh, well, how do I get rid of these? Oh, well, here, take this.
Yeah.
Oh, lower tab. Okay, then I feel better. Well, I don't want to feel like this tomorrow, so now I got to spend another $5 on this lower tab 10 tomorrow when I come to school. Now I'm paying $5 every day to stay not sick at 15 years old. You know, it's not about not taking the medication, it's about educating people about why they're taking the medication. If you don't have pain, why would you take a painkiller? If you don't have ADHD, why would you take Adderall? If you don't have anxiety, why would you take Xanax? You know what I mean? If you have those things, and they're going to help you live a better quality of life, then by all means, let's teach you how to take them responsibly so that you don't end up at the end of the month with nothing left and your prescription doesn't get filled for 3 more days or 4 more days. So either go to the street or freaking withdraw because 9 times out of 10, you're going to go hit the street.
And I love that you said that, Quinn, about the education, right? Is educating people on what could happen. Because, like I said, I was taking oxycodone before I had my leg amputated. And then of course I'm on oxycodone after I had my leg amputated. And of course in the hospital they regulated it really, really well, every 4 hours. And we made sure that at a certain time at night, I got my certain amount of oxycodone. I think it was 10 milligrams, so I could at least get 5 to 6 hours worth of good rest. However, I remember once I got home, once I got to my daughter's after rehab, I've got all my prescriptions, right? I got it on the table and I got a freaking pile of them. Like I said, it was about eight of them. And I'm got my little instructions on how to take it. And I've got to myself where I'm like, you know what? I'm at that point now with the pain where I can handle my pain. I can deal with it. I'm not going to take this stuff anymore. And I stopped cold turkey. And I remember how agitated I was getting. I was getting so freaking irritated. And there was times I just felt like I was just enclosed in a room. And my daughter and her family did everything they could to get me out and take me places. And a lot of my friends did the same thing, would come and pick me up and take me for lunch or dinner just to get me out of the house. And I was talking to my buddy one time who was addicted to prescription pills. And I'm like, dude, man, I'm freaking going nuts. I don't understand what's going on with me. He said the same thing that somebody said to you. It's like you're withdrawn. I'm like, what the hell? Are you serious? So I'm a freaking addict now. I'm addicted to prescription pills because I'm withdrawn. He goes, Al, man, you've been on this stuff for so long, right? You've had your pain management. Luckily, I had people to
Hmm.
help me with my pain management. However, I was going to do this on my own and I just stopped cold turkey, not realizing I need to taper myself off of it. And
Hmm.
I had to get back on it. I had to get back on it and I had to get a hold of my doctor and go, how do I get myself off of this stuff? And he told me, and he basically said the same thing the doctor told me, right? We tapered myself off of it to where I finally just was able to stop. And the same thing happened with the gabapentin. I did not realize that you cannot just quit gabapentin just cold turkey.
Oh
And so,
yeah.
I had people who have had other limbs amputated, and they're like, "Yeah, you'll be on this the rest of your life." And I'm like, "The hell if I am! I'm not taking this shit the rest of my life." And it really helped with a lot of my nerves because you figure everything inside my leg was cut and stretched and tied in
Hmm.
knots or cauterized or however they freaking do it.
Oof.
And so I was really freaking out that I was going to have to be on this stuff all my life. And then when I went into my doctor and I said, "Hey, I'm told I'm going to have to be on this gabapentin the rest of my life," and she goes, "Well, that's up to you. You don't." And I'm like, "Oh, are you serious?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm serious. You don't have to be on it unless you feel like you need it, right? If the nerves are firing so hard and it's so painful." But she goes, don't you dare quit. What are you on now? And I told her, and she goes, "Okay, I'm writing you a new prescription. This is what you're going to do." And within 3 weeks, I was completely done. So it was good to have those people in my corner to educate me on it, to help me learn how to taper myself off and tell me I was going through withdrawals when I didn't understand it myself. I just thought I was going freaking nuts. And you're right. So many people, I've had lots of guests on my show who had back injuries or a car accident or something, and they get on some type of prescription, and before they know it, man, they're freaking robbing banks. I actually had one guy, he robbed a bank twice, and had everything, the country club membership and fancy cars, big house, beautiful wife, kids, lost it all due to a back injury and somebody giving him an oxycodone.
Mm.
But it is when we have somebody in our corner that can teach us that pain management, which again, I feel could have been done at this recovery center instead of just booting them back out on the street. I think it would have saved that person a lot of other heartache and shame and guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I think there's a lot to say at the fact that, you said your drug of choice was Coke and alcohol, and you were left questioning yourself, like, did this medication that I take that is going to help me through, this insane part of my life?
Well, shows that we're still recording. Somehow we lost connection. Now there he is. Now we're getting back on. I can hear you, Ed. I just can't see you yet.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, I'm here. I don't see you yet.
Huh. All right. Well, we know we're both on there. Hopefully everything will kick in. It shows that we are still recording, thank goodness. Um, I was starting to wonder because I kept seeing some little glitches, but I kept checking my connection and I'm still showing a full connection. So I don't know what the hell's going on, but
Yeah, that's weird.
hopefully we'll get.
Um,
Anyway, you was saying, if you remember what you were saying.
yeah, I was saying, I think it's interesting that, for example, your situation where you said, you're drug. Oh, now it's recording. I was saying that I found it interesting that you said that your method of, substance abuse was cocaine and alcohol, but you found yourself questioning yourself, am I an addict now because I'm going through withdrawals from this, from the opiates after, you know, you needed that. Like that mind state of like you're not sober if you do mood or mind altering substances, to me, deciding to take a medication that's going to help you get through something like that is is a more sober thought than saying I'm going to suffer through this because because a bunch of people will say I'm not sober if I don't. Like we to me, sobriety is a mind state, right? Being clean is a physical state because when we say clean and sober, right, they're two different things. If you are one of my clients at the mental health center and you're supposed to be on, Xanax or Adderall or Wellbutrin or Abilify or whatever else, if I test you, you're gonna show positive for that, right? Which is technically a negative or a positive urine analysis, right? You're going to test positive or be dirty for something that you're prescribed, right? So it's not about being clean, it's about the clarity of the mind, right? To me, sobriety equals clarity of the mind, whereas being positive or negative on a urine analysis is, that's being clean or dirty, which I don't really like those terms, but being positive or negative on a urine analysis shouldn't matter if you're supposed to be prescribed to that medication.
Yeah.
It's more so, what is the intention? Like, are you, because there are people who are prescribed to medications who are abusing them. There are people who are not prescribed to medications that are abusing those too. So it's more so for me about why are you doing that? You're taking opiates. What the F? Oh, well, you got your leg amputated. Well, that makes a lot of sense now. Like, are you shooting it up in the bathroom? No. Are you taking it as prescribed? Like then that's responsible use. And I think that in your situation, it's a very clear, it's very clearly visible that not taking the prescribed medication would have made things harder for you. And that's not what recovery is about. It's not about everything being, suffering through everything because you were somebody who used alcohol and cocaine once upon a time. You know what I mean? You're a completely different person now. So you should be able to do what you think is best for your own recovery as long as there's transparency, honesty, and it's based in recovery and not escapism or dependency. I
Yeah.
think somebody to for somebody to tell you that you've lost your sobriety time or something because you decided to take the medications is outrageous. Just like I would say it's outrageous for somebody to say, "Hey, that person decided to get on mental health meds because they were going through, trauma and all this stuff. And so now they're no longer sober because they're on their mental health meds." And that being that cannabis is now, being scheduled as, holding medical benefit and that it's being prescribed for PTSD and mental health. then to me that falls underneath the qualifications of needing a life-saving medicine. And just because it's a plant and you smoke it or you eat it rather than, wash it down with a glass of freaking juice, then it's not valid. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to agree because there are quite a few people out there that are doing things like that now, and they're still contributing to the community. They're not out there running amok. They're not getting arrested. They're not stealing. They're not lying. They're actually the type of individual who they was before they got addicted, right? Because we all know addiction changes us. That person that we was before is still inside there. We've just kind of lost them. They've gotten covered up by a shell. So yeah, I would just like to see a little bit more of that in the recovery community, opening up a little bit and understanding more of that because we really here, and I've not been to recovery places in other states, but from what I have seen so far in the 4 years I've been involved, we got a hell of a great recovery place here. I mean, really, there is so much support, and we get a lot of, there's other recovery centers, supporting other recovery centers, and we're all there. However, if and when we can get rid of that finger pointing of how that person does it, then I think that would really put us way above everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of my favorite things is going out to these recovery events and taking pictures with, people from, Odyssey House and 7th Street and, the Utah Harm Reduction Coalition and, all these people. It's just, justice by objectives and stuff. It's just so nice to be, in a group of people who get it,
Yeah,
and we definitely have a very open community here. Evie Cardenas, one of my very best friends. Like she's just such an amazing person, abstinent, but supports our mission. And she's huge in the community. And I would say, it's probably mostly thanks to her that, we've been welcomed because she sees the intention, she sees the healing, she sees the steps, she sees that we're not just a bunch of smokers around a table, getting stoned. We're actually focused on recovery. We're actually focused on like the deep-rooted healing, the inner child healing, the somatic healing.
yeah.
She sees that.
Well, and I love to. I know the last time that you was on the show, we talked about the Maslows, right? And that was
Hmm.
actually discussed in our training as well. Emergo
Nice.
Academy, we had a whole class on that, and I found it very interesting when they brought it up. It's like, holy crap, I've done a show on this. This is really
Heck yeah.
cool. But again,
Yeah.
it goes back to that brain, right? It's we all don't wear the same size pants or shoes. We all have different tastes when it comes to vehicles, how our homes decorate, so many different things. It can be the exact same way when it comes to our sobriety. The exact same way. It's not a one size fits all for all of us. I mean, gosh, I've talked to people who have gone to as many as 18 recovery places until they finally got that one that just connected for them. And
Yeah.
that's what we should be celebrating. And I had somebody open my eyes a long time ago, Quinn, that really shook me down to the core. You know, my late wife who passed away this April. Um, about the fourth recovery place that she went to. I just really, she's like, I'm going to go back in recovery, and being a person on the other side, I was like, yeah, okay, freaking whatever. You've been to three of them already. There ain't one that's done a damn thing for you. You usually start drinking the day after you get out or the day of that you get out, and this is my mindset, right?
Yeah.
And somebody goes, Al, you're looking at it the wrong way. Like, how am I looking at it the wrong way? He said, she's still trying. She's not stopped,
Mhm.
brother. If she wants to go back in for the fourth time, that means she's still trying. And see, I still get freaking goosebumps when I hear that, and I get a
Yeah,
little
I
bit,
just got chills, dude.
because I wasn't looking at it that way, right? I was
Yeah.
looking at it, well, here's another fucking waste of time. This is bullshit. And that really punched me in the gut and it opened my eyes going, holy shit, she's not giving up because she's doing it on her own, right? I didn't push her to do it because I realized after the third time I was pushing her to do it. She was doing it for the wrong reason. She needed to do it for
Hmm.
herself.
Hmm.
And that fourth time, she was doing it for herself. And here I am discrediting her because of it, which did
Hmm.
not help her in her journey. Instead of going, oh my gosh, awesome, great job. I'm going to be here for you. What can I do to support you? You know, I was totally opposite. So you talked about at the beginning of the show all the stuff that you tried, right? You did this, you did that, you did this, you did that. You did everything you could to try to figure out what works for Quinn. What the hell is it that I'm missing? You never gave up. You found something that worked, but then we still got those outsiders pointing the fingers going, no, 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 no. You're doing it wrong. We got to be a little bit more careful about telling people what they're doing wrong when we're not that person. We're not in their shoes. We don't know what's inside their head, right?
Right.
And be there to support it, whether we agree with it or not. It's their life that they're messing with. And as long as they're being the respectful, lovable type of person, I think, man, we should put our arms around them every single day and root them on as much as possible, whether we agree with it or not. Now, if they're out there causing havoc in the community and still getting arrested and stealing or doing whatever, that's one thing. But when you got somebody that's going a direction that they feel is working the best for them, again, who the hell am I to tell you how to freaking do it?
Right. Well, and like, it's just like if I started a group about Suboxone, and was like, "Hey, y'all, Suboxone saves lives." And I started to build a group around, how to use Suboxone responsibly, and how to administer it, how to taper, how to gave all the specifics. That's exactly what I'm doing. With CaliSober, people are gonna use cannabis in their recovery. The more that I've done this 4 years now. I've grown a following over 1 million collectively across my platforms, and all these people are people who, the majority of them anyway, are people who are using cannabis in their recovery. So they're gonna do it. Might as well do it responsibly in a way that makes sense and get them to understand, well, why is it that cannabis is hitting these receptors that allows me to, not resort to using harder substances, right? What is it about it filling that CB1 receptor that makes me feel stimulated enough to where my brain isn't craving going out and sticking a needle in my arm? What neurotransmitters are being tickled, and what exactly is happening biologically that is keeping me from going into withdrawal when I'm coming off of opiates because of this CB2 receptor being overwhelmed, right? So the plant is great. And the reason why so many people use the plant is because it helps them achieve something, right? The reason why we started doing drugs and alcohol is because it allowed us to achieve something. It made us feel something that we wanted to feel. Cannabis does the same thing. It tickles those receptors that make you feel like, hey, this is normal. The reason why that happens is because biologically it's supposed to happen. Our receptors are supposed to be filled with dopamine. They're supposed to be filled with endorphins. They're supposed to be filled with different chemicals that allow our bodies to respond in a way that is beneficial. When we understand what is happening with these molecules and these chemicals and all of these things, we can say, oh, this is what's happening. When I'm taking an opiate, my mu receptor is being overwhelmed by all of these opiates, and the long-term effects of those cause a biological response, which make my muscles contract and do all this stuff, right? When we get people to understand biologically and physiologically and psychologically what's happening, It's easier to separate ourselves from that programming of the habit loop and everything else and the neurological passages and everything else and say, oh, I don't actually want to do hard drugs because I know where that leads. That's just my survival mechanisms that I've built over time. That's what a trigger is. I'm not actually triggered to go and ruin my life. What I'm triggered to do right now is my neurological bridge that says that I'm attracted to that thing. What it's actually saying is that I'm feeling like I want to be stimulated, and that is the method that I use to feel stimulated so much that that neurological passage will immediately go to thinking that that is the answer because I did it so much. So now that I understand that, let's redirect and go back to this is what I actually want. I want a healthy life with good relationships, good people, healthy habits, and doing all these things. It goes much, much deeper into understanding what addiction is instead of just saying avoid it. Avoiding never did anything. Being abstinent for me was kind of like saying, you can't ever do that. You have to, these are things that you can't ever do. I don't want anybody or anything to tell me what I can and cannot do. I want to be able to make the decision for myself to say, I never want to do that. Or say, I am only going to do that if I need it. Today I understand, my psychological and biological responses to opiates and cocaine and all these other things that I've healed the parts of me that crave that dopamine stimulation. And so now when I see that, I automatically say, it's not something that is attractive to me. Getting high, feeling outside of myself doesn't feel good anymore. When I was 3 years into my recovery and somebody said, "Hey, I'll give you a free ketamine therapy, if you want to try it out," I said, "Okay." I wanted to see if it would be beneficial to my recovery. I tried it. To me, it wasn't beneficial for me. I've seen it be beneficial for many, many other people, but for me, it didn't have the effects that I was hoping for, and I decided I don't ever need to do that again, right? In that moment, that's what I said. But nobody ever told me, well, maybe what happens if you get into an accident and you need your leg amputated and no other opiates work except for ketamine.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden my brain is going to open up to, oh, well, that is an option because if nothing else works, I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep my quality of life the best that I can. And because I'm strong in my sobriety and my recovery, as you are, you I hope to say and to be in a position of saying instead of, well, I can't take that or can't do that or I shouldn't be or I shouldn't because of this and this, say I'm going to take this because I think it's the right thing for me to do, but I'm aware of my propensity for addiction and that physical withdrawals and all these things, so I will be mindful of how I use them. And now I know, and just like you did, you didn't allow yourself to get into that routine of addiction. You took it as prescribed the way you needed to. You recognized that you wanted to not be on it or that you didn't need it anymore and started to get off of it, did your taper, and now you're good. Nobody should question your sobriety. Nobody should question whether you did it right or did it wrong. You're here today and you're still sober and you're doing the right thing. You're doing it right because your life isn't falling apart.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what matters.
And it's crazy that you mentioned that ketamine too, because that was the only thing when my block wore off that literally got me calmed down. I mean, gosh, I felt like my leg was in a freaking meat grinder. Um, Even though we don't know what it feels like being in a meat grinder, but that's sure the hell what it felt like. I mean, 4 hours of it. I just remember being just soaking wet. I was drenched. My blood pressure was 198 over 90 something. I mean, the pain was just
Wow.
crazy. And when they finally got everything okayed with the ketamine, because nothing else was working, I told you this before the show that They say I entered the K-hole. Even my doctor came in later that afternoon and says, I understand you went in the K-hole. And I was like, I realized immediately too that I did not like that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it took my pain away so quick. And I was so grateful for it. But the way I was feeling, I mean, I was watching my mom and a friend of mine that had come to visit, and she just happened to stop at the wrong time. I watched them kind of melt together, and they were 20 feet away from me, and my mom's whispering in my friend's ear, and I could almost hear like she was whispering in my ear.
Mm.
Everything just intense and heightened, and I my daughter even recognized it and asked everybody to leave the room except for the nurses, of course, because she could just see my head going all over the place. And
Mm.
I even realized that day too. I told him, I finally got to tell him, like, you guys need to back off. I don't like, you guys need to back off. 'Cause now I was just in a space where, man, I don't even know where the frick I was at, to be honest with you. All I know is however many people I had in my room, it sounded like there was 100 people in my room, and just everything was spinning and just going crazy. And um, my PT was trying to get me to stand up, and I said, I'm not standing up till I'm not dizzy anymore, because I was so afraid of falling on my leg and
Yeah.
fall on my leg. But you know, um, Quinn, one thing too that I admire about you is you've educated yourself on this so much. You know, if some of you listeners was listening to this and you're hearing Quinn, and he mentioned it's not like everyone's just all sitting around a table like the '70s series where they're all sitting around smoking joints. The room's full of smoke and all this. It's not like that. It's You've educated yourself about it. And that's what's really cool. You just didn't do it and take it and go, okay, now I feel better. It's like, why am I feeling better? Why is this working? Can this work for other individuals? Which it is. It's working for other individuals. And I admire you for that, to go, man, what's going to work for Quinn? You didn't stop. You could have thrown up your hands and just go, okay, whatever. This is how my life's going to be. You continued to move forward too, brother, and looked for something to get you through whatever it was that you were going through at that time, and something to help you so you could get your life back, and look where you're at today. So hell, the way I mean, I'm looking at living proof right here. I see it, and every time I've ran into you somewhere out at a recovery event or somewhere, I mean, I've not ever seen a stoned Quinn, not once. You're so down to earth, and you're so observant, and you're just an intelligent man, and I look at
Thank
myself
you.
as being blessed to have you come into my life, and how we got to meet. And I think actually the first time we met in person was at a New Year's Eve event.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that church.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you had already
Yeah.
been on my show, but we had not ever met in person. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 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 I remember I was thinking we met before that, but no, you're right. We did the podcast and then we met at New Year's Eve the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw you outside, and I was like, Quinn, and you're looking at me, and you're looking like, who the hell's this dude? But then once I said my name, you knew exactly who it was. And
Yeah.
I think we sat outside and around one of those heaters for a little while and just
Yeah.
sat there and shot the shit and got to know each other quite better. But yeah,
Yeah.
I tip my hat off to you, brother. Thank you for doing
Thank
what
you.
you're doing, because anyone, at least for me, anyone that is out there in the community doing what they can to help other individuals, help them get their lives back, help them see who they are as individuals, as a person, man, I tip my hat off to them, because that's a form of love in my eyes. And there's nothing that can go against love. There's no competition. Anything other than love, I don't know what else that can compete with it.
Definitely. I agree with that for sure. It's the highest form of frequency that you can achieve, and it will change any other frequency 100%.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share? We're coming up on that hour. We did lose about 2 minutes. Hopefully, everything still comes together with the show. It stayed recording, so I'm hoping. But is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just real quick, I just wanted to mention, the CaliSober program. Again, we have a Facebook page that has close to 100,000 members. It's called CaliSober Recovery Hub. Within that group or on my page, we have all the links to go to the private groups where you can access the Zoom meetings, the schedule for the in-person meetings. It has access to get the books. The books are $10, but if you can't afford it, we actually also give away the literature for free in the featured tab in our private group because we want everyone to have access to it. The books really just help us, help support us with, rent and printing books and materials, promotional materials and things like that. But the program's 100% free. Like I mentioned, that we have mentors, we have meetings, we have steps, we have all the resources that somebody could need if they're, working a program that doesn't fit the abstinence only model. It's not just for people who, use mushrooms and weed. It's for people who are on mental health meds. It's for people who are, managing other things. We're not just about, one certain drug. We're about removing unhealthy behaviors and substances. So we have people, who are there for gambling, who are there for self-harm, who are there for, codependency of all forms. So
Yeah.
everyone's welcome. You can find me on all platforms at Cali Sober Quinn. And yeah,
Okay, that was my next
come
question.
join a
So
meeting.
how do people find you? Cali Sober Quinn, and that's Quinn, correct?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, brother, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be back on the show, and always welcome, always welcome, Quinn. If you ever got anything else you'd like to chat about, I don't care if it's in another couple months. I mean, I'm booked all the way out till October. We're actually booking for October already, but you're
Wow.
more than welcome anytime, my friend, to come on and
Thank you.
discuss, if you've got a big event or anything that you got going on. And I'd like to take this time too to um, invite you to our Healing Utah Success Summit as my guest. And I'll give you and
Wow.
person a free ticket. So if you'd like to come on October 14th to our Healing Utah Success Summit as my guest, you are more than welcome. Just let me know if you can go so I can make sure I get your name down on the list. So when you show up to the front desk, they don't try charging you. Tickets are really inexpensive anyway. They're only 10 or $20. But October 4th at the Miller Free Enterprise in Sandy from 10 to 2. We've got some really great speakers. Some of these names I'm sure you'll recognize. We've got Manny Lopez, who is speaking this year, SL Manny Boy. And we've got Alan Farringer, who helped Dave DeRocher get TOSA up and going. Then he went and got Red Barn going, which is now John Volkin. Matter of fact, John Volkin is coming in. They've usually been our sponsor every year, but since they've changed, they're coming in as one of our vendors. Ardu just came in. Ardu Recovery and Provo just came in as one of our main sponsors. But yeah,
Nice.
would love to have you, man. So if you can make
Heck
it,
yeah.
the offer is there for you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. All right. Well, again, thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate you, brother. And again, guys, check out emergoacademy.com. Recovery is a brain thing. And again, if you're not interested in being trained as a crisis and recovery coach, their training will actually help you with your life. I mean, it's definitely changed my life. It's helped me really, guys, in all honesty, it's helped me a lot through even my amputation and then the passing of my wife. And a lot of the tools that they have shared have just really, really helped me out. So I give a big shout out to Dave and Susan Kenny for all their love, and they're great coaches. I can reach out to them at any time. That's what I love about these guys is they are just a text away. They are in Canada. However, all I got to do is text them and say, "Hey, can we talk?" And they'll usually give me a call. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you again to all our guests. We got a lot of great guests coming up here in the future. Looking forward to it. Guys, remember this: addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.